because in our immigration detention centres, they're growing marijuana, the wacky tobacco, the devil's lettuce, whatever you want to call it. It is going down over there. Now, one officer from Serco, which is the company, the contractor that runs our immigration detention centres, has been charged with corrupt conduct over smuggling some of these drugs into these detention centres. But an investigation by The Age has found that Villawood in Sydney and a number of other detention centres, including in Brisbane and Melbourne, are rife with this stuff. They found detainees, openly growing marijuana plants in their rooms at Villawood in Sydney. The border forces conceded that drug and alcohol use has led to violent and dangerous behaviour. They're growing metre-high cannabis plants in bathrooms. I think we've got an image here for you to see, right? That's a serious marijuana plant.
That's
there
a tree, baby.
that no one has intervened about. Apparently they're growing smaller plants in common gardens, so they're just open for everyone to have access to. So clearly the inmates are using it and the guards are turning a blind eye to it. And the way they make all this work is that in the dead of night, they get drones to fly stuff over fences and drop it in, or they get people to go into visiting centres and the guards just sort of go in there and they're either on the take or part of the setup and they say nothing about it. I mean, it sounds like they're having a gay old time. It's a veritable party in these detention centres. I'm starting to wonder why they wanted to get out of them and into the community in the first place. You can do whatever you want in
there. There's got a few people now being like, so how exactly do I get detained nowadays? Because this sounds like a party, but and obviously it bears mentioning that the Immigration Minister as well as the Home Affairs Minister, both Giles and Claire O'Neill, have declined to comment. But this was a investigation that the Commonwealth were like, yeah, let's look into this. They found home brewing kits. These guys are making their own alcohol.
That's what I would
Yeah, now you're in. You're happy to be detained. But it also just goes to show and to highlight once again how completely and utterly broken the system is. What are these people doing in detention? So rules introduced in 2014, laws I should say, mean that if you come here and you get sentenced to more than 12 months prison, then automatically, mandatory, your visa is taken off you. Great, that sounds awesome. Wouldn't we all agree? Yes, you get to go home. Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. You blew your chance. Goodbye. But no, then they sit in these detention centres for years while they fight deportation. And of course, the taxpayer not only forked out for the time you spent in prison and 3 square meals a day, etc. and so on, then we fork out for you to party it up, drug trafficking, literally drug trafficking from your detainee centres and just literally pushing out more crime into the community.
Well, that's the interesting thing about our detention centres now is that 90% of people in detention are criminals who are simply fighting deportation orders. The Border Force Deputy Commissioner said 55% of people currently in detention are in there for things like murder or violent assaults. Another 17% are in there for rapes, for sexual acts against children. And so what they've done is they've just moved from the prison system into the detention system. The problem is that police powers in the detention centres are a lot less than what they are in the prison system.
So
they can't search rooms as easily. And so the prison culture is now in the detention centre culture. So Border Force need more ability to go in and treat the place like a prison rather than a accommodation house or a halfway house.
But this is how it all sort of unravelled in the first place in the High Court, because the High Court found that it was illegal for the government to detain someone. Only the court can detain someone. Now, if the court detains someone, they go to prison. The parallel system the government has been running is what you described, which is basically like a halfway house run by contractors.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have any of the rules of a prison. It doesn't have the same jurisdiction as a prison. So they can't do any of this stuff. And this is the problem the federal government has now found itself in, because all of these people have been let out. They don't have any laws on the table to do anything else about them. They could create the laws. They could do something with these people, but they've been totally unwilling to do it. And it all lines up, the dope smoking and whatever lines up. Last week I interviewed Caleb Runciman from the West Australian, who stayed in a motel where some of these detainees who've been let out were staying. And one of the first things he told me was that they were having very clear conversations about where they could get weed. Now I'm not surprised to hear that at all, because they were already smoking the stuff when they were in the detention centres.
I simply can't understand why they're not sent home. You came here, you're a non-citizen, you were sentenced to over 12 months in prison, so you must have done something pretty serious. And after the taxpayer has put you up in prison for God only knows how long, you should get sent home. Your visa's already been revoked. Why are we keeping you here? Get lost.
I suppose the problem is that the country doesn't want to take them back or something. But
we don't care.
Can't we just
Not
put them
our
on
problem.
All these legal appeals that they're able to go through, and there's no shortage of human rights lawyers willing to represent them at the cost of Australian taxpayers.
Just buy them a ticket.
Oh, great. So then they're clogging up our courts more on the taxpayer
I'm not saying
dime.
it's good, but that's just...
Yeah, no, I'm just saying this system is completely and utterly unworkable. It's unsustainable. Yeah. And the more even reading an article like this, the everyday person... that's highlighted to them. They're like, hang on a minute, you mean to tell me? So it's not just these detainees that, again, has been highlighted recently due to the High Court decision. There's hundreds and hundreds of them just wasting away in detention centres. 90% of them are criminals. Their visas have been revoked. Goodbye. That should be the end of it.
They wouldn't be wasting away after smoking all that dope. They're getting the munchies. And